welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here on the west coast of Canada. I hope everybody is having a great weekend so far, staying healthy, staying strong, staying optimistic. Hi Jainil, welcome members. Hi Ali, Ashish, Sibin, Parminder, Anirudh, Ali, Sanem. Good to see many students in the class. Welcome to our chat moderator, Carolina. Carolina, I sent you an email in regards to premium courses. Please check that out. All right, everyone. This class is presented to you by aehelp.com. That's academicenglishhelp.com, as well as IELTShelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of those websites, we have lots and lots of English and communication skills to teach you so that you can improve your band scores for your next IELTS exam. I see some people have some speaking exams coming up tomorrow, like Olamaid, Lawal. Good luck on your exams for those of you who are sitting your speaking exams tomorrow. Quickly show you our websites. This is our academic IELTS website here with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join the premium package. It is a one-time payment for lifetime access. It's well worth it. We are a British Council registration center for the IELTS, as well as certified agents, so you are in good hands with us. This is our general IELTS website portal here with the green background. Same idea. Click that big red button to join the premium package. And when you do that, you'll have a My Student account. And in your My Student account, you will have computer-based practice exams, a full online course, over 100 hours of lesson videos, workbooks, study plans, audio CDs, and you have this student partner speaking as well. So you can find some other IELTS students to practice your speaking with for free. Okay, so you click on that, and then you'll get redirected to this page here. And right now I have Vaidik calling me. I'm sorry, Vaidik. I'm not sure if you're watching the live class as well, but Vaidik is trying to call me. So Vaidik next time, okay? Agnes, Vaidik, and Kashirsha are in here looking for speaking partners. So right now I'm not going to be able to speak with Vaidik. So maybe I'll send Vaidik a quick message. I'll just say, I'm teaching a class. Next time. Good studies. All right. Okay, so let's get back to point here. Okay. So, if you have questions, students, send me an email. My email is adrian@aehelp.com. Ashish, that's because the background was bright, but I fixed that now. Here, let's see. How is this? Okay. All right. Ali, I didn't see your question, but again, if I don't see your question, if you have an important question about IELTS, just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com, and I'll reply. Okay. All right, I'm going to just close this so that I don't get more messages in the class. But when you're studying, keep that window open in your My Student account, and then people will ping you to chat with you and discuss IELTS with you. So, all right, let's do this. You can get our exam books from Amazon as well. If you can get it for your Kindle electronic version, just search for A-Helps Academic IELTS or G-Helps General IELTS. You can actually get the physical book mailed to you as well. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have live classes Wednesday to Saturdays. This is our last class for this week, and then 23rd to the 25th It's no class. And then 26th to the 29th, we've got lots of classes. I'll put this schedule up on our YouTube community board as well. Okay. All right, everyone. So today is a speaking class, and we're going to be getting into some speaking part 3. So this is speaking, so make sure to speak and repeat. So copy my intonation, my pronunciation, my fluency as much as possible. Try to do as much of it from just listening and not having to read, okay? So try not to read whenever possible, all right? And we'll get right into it. So just a quick tip, and then I'll give you lots of strategy as we go along. So you always want to be fluent, give details, original answers, give complete answers. And by complete answers, always focus on the answer, explanation, and example. All right? So that should, these 3 concepts should be in your head at all times. Answer, explain, example. This is what I believe because of this. Here is a clear example of it. Okay? That's what you need to keep in mind. Let's get into it, and I'll give you feedback as you answer with me, okay? So make sure when you're typing your answers in the chat, don't just type them, but also say them, okay? All right, Saga says, hi, Adrian. Thanks a lot. I had main part of my test today. I was very focused and calm, and apparently I think I've done work well. Okay, Saga, I'll keep my fingers crossed that you get a great score. Okay, all right. Ashish, I think I'm far from speaking in monotone, but if anybody else thinks that, let me know. Okay, so monotone means without inflections or deflections. I tend to be quite animated. All right, so here we go. Part 3 is the last part of your speaking exam. It takes about 4 or 5 minutes at the end of the 12-minute interview. It's in connection to your part 2, okay? The examiner will introduce a topic that's related. So here we go. Let's talk more about changing history. All right, so obviously part 2 was something about historical figures or events in history. Okay, so something about that. All right. So then the examiner will open up with a question. These are specific questions on this topic. They're usually not about you, but they're about different contexts that people may think of in school or in their work. All right, here we go. Some people create much change in society during their lifetimes. What do you think motivates such people? So again, some people create much change in society. So here you can think about social change, environmental change, maybe change to infrastructure by building a large building. So change in society during their lifetimes. What do you think motivates such people? So what encourages certain people to affect much change in the world? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one, and give a reason as well. Just use English in an IELTS online class. It's not a class for beginners, so you should be using your English. All right. So, Kevin, good to see you in class. Even with a nice high IELTS score, you're keeping it going. Fantastic. All right, Kevin says, what spurs many people into driving social changes can be to foster a more favorable environment for themselves or their social class, race, and ethnicity, like Martin Luther King calling for reforms banning racial segregation. Another motivator is their altruism, as they emphasize empathize with the ordeals of others and would like to the atrocities to end, like Abraham Lincoln pushing for the abolishment of slavery. Very nice answer, Kevin. Yeah, nice answer, explanation, and example. And you've actually answered the question twice, Kevin, with a lot of really good vocabulary. Students, be careful with double answers because there's a good chance that once you've given one answer, the examiner will just go to the next question. So even if you have great English, even if you're band 9, they will likely cut you off. And I know, Kevin, I think you got band 8 or 8.5 in your speaking, so you did a fantastic job. And it shows. Again, don't be surprised if they cut you off. If they cut you off, it means that you've already answered the question or you're going off topic. Okay? All right, let's see some more. Rashika, our member, says the motivational factors that influence change in our social systems for some people are social inequalities, disrespect to nations, and socioeconomic bankruptcy. This process, people take much effort to change it. Okay, Rashika, you have some good ideas, some good words. It's a little bit awkward as far as grammar and organization, so be careful with that, okay? So we're talking about people. So what motivates people, okay? Students, here's a really important tip for part 3. Even though the questions seem really difficult, do not overthink it. Okay, so if I want to change the world around me, think about it personally, right? I want to become the next Prime Minister of Canada and I want to change the world around me. Why do I want to do that? Well, I want to live in a better world. I want people to be happier. And of course, the motivations are likely my own experiences. Okay, so you don't want to overcomplicate this. So keep your thoughts simple. So this is another tip here, is keep your thoughts simple. Okay, many individuals who have a great impact on communities and nations are driven by their past experiences and their desires to create a better future for themselves and their fellow men and women. And let's take the example of Martin Luther King that many people are familiar with, as Kevin introduced. So Martin Luther King wanted to see a world where his children would be treated as equals with all other Americans and not suffer from prejudice. So he strongly and publicly advocated for such change. Okay. Yeah, so maybe some of you even have that famous speech that we see in movies and so on. All right. So here we go. Repeat after me. Some people create much change in society during their lifetimes. What do you think motivates such people? Many individuals who have a great impact on communities and nations are driven by their past experiences and their desires to create a better future for themselves and their fellow men and women. Martin Luther King wanted to see a world where his children would be treated as equals with all other Americans and not suffer from prejudice. So he strongly and publicly advocated for such change. Okay. So notice here when I give the example of Martin Luther King, notice how I don't say for example or for instance. I just simply give the example, all right? And we have lots of such examples from other countries as well. For example, many students in India, you might think of Mahatma Gandhi or the father of India. So there are lots of examples. The reason I don't use for example or for instance is because examiners may interrupt you when you use for example or for instance, and it's actually smoother and more fluent to omit saying for example. Good examples are clear. When you use good examples, they just flow. So you don't have to say for example, all right? Okay, and students, just a little bit of warning. Please do use English in the chat. It's an English class. Stay focused. That's very important for the IELTS exam as well. When you're doing your speaking, make sure to stay in English the entire day of your speaking exam. It's very exhausting and confusing for the human mind to jump between languages. That's why interpreters get paid quite well, because it's difficult work. Okay. All right. Okay. Now here is the follow-up question. So there's always a follow-up question. So is this always good or bad? So people who are motivated to change the world, is this always a good or a bad situation? Okay. And again, the question doesn't ask good or bad change. It just asks for change. So regardless of what your views are, whether or not Abraham Lincoln changed the world for the better or worse, or Gandhi changed the world for better or worse, or other famous leaders, it doesn't really matter. It's not necessarily good or bad. The idea here is change itself. So keep that in mind. Okay. All right. So that makes even more sense now that you see the follow-up question. So is this always good or is it bad? Okay. So is this always good or is it always bad? What do you think? Give a full sentence answer here. All right. Okay. And usually when you see this type of a follow-up question, most commonly the answer is, well, it can be both good and bad. Sometimes it's just one or the other, but oftentimes it's both. And especially in this case, we can think of historical figures who have changed the world for the better, people who have changed the world for the worse as well. So all right. Bishal, your answer seems a little bit off topic. Maybe rethink it. It's unclear. Kevin says, I don't think it's decidedly one way or the other. If the changes are motivated by the common good, like better social security, then it would be welcomed. But when social reforms favor certain groups, they would exasperate hatred among classes facing backlash and even civil unrest. Yeah, absolutely, Kevin, right? So some people are motivated for change which is disagreeable by many, and some are motivated for change which is more welcomed. Absolutely. All right. Pachu says, change may be good or bad depending on the situation and the demand of the public. However, I suppose it's always good for someone. Not everyone, Pachu, but it's always good for someone, right? Okay, so careful with that last word. Ferdov says, it's absolutely a positive trend as these people's messages help to create better societies where all individuals are treated the same way. Yeah, again, for Dobbs, there's no right answer to this. It's just giving a good answer, all right? The examiner might think, oh, I don't agree with you, but hey, as long as you gave me good English, I'll still give you a band 9. Okay. All right. Smit Patel says, on the positive side, people can see the situation in order to use the evolution of society daily. On the other hand, it might happen that illiterate people do not know about this. Smit, I'm not sure where you're going with it, especially with using the word things twice. Students, do not use the word things in your answers. The word things is confusing for your listener because they don't know what thing you're talking about, right? So I know many of you know this already, but I'm just going to remind you, one really good way to improve your speaking skills is to replace the word things every time you use it. So do not use the word things in your communication, as it has no value for your listener. Okay? To improve your speaking skills, always strive to find the best noun for your subject and object. Okay, so think about what thing you're actually talking about. So what is the thing that you're talking about? Are you talking about society? Are you talking about leaders? Are you talking about results? So what is the thing that you're talking about? Okay, always consider that question. So my answer here is, I suppose it could be either or. I mean, it depends on what the person is advocating for. In some cases, this could be for the benefit of mankind, such as reducing pollution and creating social equality, which is good, but unfortunately, there are numerous cases where people are motivated to affect negative change in society that leads to conflict and suffering. One example would be Hitler. Okay? So here we go. Is it always good or bad? I suppose it could be either or. I mean, it depends. Oh, sorry. I don't just listen to me. Speak and repeat. Okay, so here we go. Is this always good or bad? I suppose it could be either or. I mean, it depends on what the person is advocating for. In some cases, this could be for the benefit of mankind, such as reducing pollution and creating social equality, which is good. But unfortunately, there are numerous cases where people are motivated to affect negative change in society that leads to conflict and suffering. One example would be Hitler. Okay, sure. So again, just speak your mind, be original. And here I'm also avoiding the for example. So by starting with the idea of one example, it's a little bit faster and smoother than saying for example. Okay? All right. Pama, you were probably blocked for some time because you weren't using English. That can happen. Okay. All right. So here we go. Next question. What are some changes that may need to happen to ensure the prosperity of future societies? So we're talking about change in society, okay? And here is this question. Again, keep an open mind. Do not overthink it. So what are some changes that may need to happen to ensure the prosperity of future societies? I bet people have several answers to this question. Okay. So what are some changes that may need to happen to ensure the prosperity? Prosperity means the well-being, a good quality of life. Okay. Ugulham, World War II. Yeah, that was partially Hitler for sure, but it's not just World War II. There were a lot of conflicts and problems within Germany as well. Okay, Kevin says transformation that would usher in social prosperity include instituting inclusive and free education and healthcare programs. Yeah, nice start, Kevin. You could simplify that part of the response by saying universal education and healthcare, which would go a long way towards building a more educated and healthy workforce, the backbone of any robust economy. Had it not been for those initiatives, countries like Singapore or Japan couldn't be such strong global economies. Even the US, Kevin, arguably the US had an extremely well-designed system back in the second half of the 20th century, okay, post-World War II. Deepika says, the safety of women and children and their welfare is one of the main changes that has to be held in high regard to ensure a prosperous society in the future. Okay. Ois says the most important changes which can lead to the development of societies are improved education and the use of technology rather than doing physical work. In addition, the use of electric vehicles instead of fuel cars. Not fuel cars, but instead of using carbon-based fuels. Okay? All right. Okay. So Preeti says, I think every country needs to disassemble their nuclear weapons so that mankind can live in peace without the fear of demolishing each other in the future. Yeah, another word for that, Preeti, is disarmament. So armor, disarmor. Disarmament is when you take apart weapons, okay? Disarmament. Asad Beck says, I think people, first of all, should avoid wars, like not bombing each other, like in Iran or Palestine. Secondly, global warming should be mitigated. Okay. Agnes says, in my opinion, we need to ensure the highest quality of education to become prosperous in the future. Okay. Andre says, today we already have many changes like World War II, Chernobyl, world climate change, and this creates society seeing Chernobyl that this event will not happen again. Okay, Andre, don't change the idea of the question. So it's not what did we learn from past events, but what do we need to change for the future? Okay. Rajvir says, some essential alterations that must happen in order to ensure the well-being of future generations include providing free access to healthcare and education services. This will ensure both highly educated and healthier societies. Okay, very good. Notice, everyone, how Rajvir is using the question, paraphrasing the question. That's a really good way to stay on topic and to be fluent. So I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that for good band scores and for good communication. Okay? So far, I've told you to give complete answers, to not use the word things, and also use the question in your answers. Paraphrase the question when you give your answer to create further or greater coherence and fluency. Okay, super important. All right. So what are some changes that may need to happen to ensure the prosperity of future societies? Certainly, there will need to be some different approaches implemented in coming years and decades to make sure that humanity both survives and lives well going forward. The major challenges that will need to be solved are global warming and environmental degradation, as well as social equality and universal education. In order to achieve this, I strongly believe that a unified world government will need to be established. Okay, so here we go. Repeat after me. So, what are some changes that may need to happen to ensure the prosperity of future societies? Certainly, there will need to be some different approaches implemented in coming years and decades to make sure that humanity both survives and lives well going forward. The major challenges that will need to be solved are global warming and environmental degradation, as well as social equality and universal education. In order to achieve this, I strongly believe that a unified world government will need to be established. All right, and some of you that watch these classes regularly are probably smiling a little bit under your nose when you see my answer, because you know that I've been advocating for a world government in past classes as well. I do think it's time for that. All right, so here's the follow-up question. What is needed to make these changes happen? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So what is needed or what is needed to make these changes happen? Okay. Anirudh, thank you for that definition of advocating. Yeah, it's great to see students helping each other. All right. Definitely do that. Okay, so go into more detail. Follow-up questions are asked by the examiner because they're looking for more detail. They're looking for greater detail, okay? OWA says to achieve these changes effectively, we should use scientific planning and allocating a budget and resources to providing humans with the tools necessary to act responsibly. Okay, Otis, I had to change it a little bit to make it sensible. Okay. Oraz says people need to be provided with quality education so that they can make informed decisions, such as throwing plastic into recycling bins rather than into the garbage. Okay, Oraz, you have a good start. Notice how I finished that with a little bit of explanation and example so that they can make educated decisions like throwing plastic containers into the recycling instead of garbage. Okay? All right. Deepika says there should be healthy and harmonious relationships among countries so that there is a universal standard for quality of education and care facilities such as hospitals for everyone. Yeah, Deepika, that goes back to my need for world government. Okay, all right. Janil says, not only do governments and humans need support, but also financial resources are needed to make these types of developments, because if people are satisfied with governmental aid and governments have enough taxpayer funds, they can definitely make these changes for providing better food and education. Okay. All right. Okay. Nick Haim on says, well, these alterations can only take place if the force of authorities combines with the willingness of citizens to raise more funds to build such buildings. Like in Vietnam, each citizen. Okay, I can see you're going with an example there. Nick Haim. So that's great. Okay. Harika says, and it's a nice answer, Nagaim. Harika says, firstly, individual responsibility should be achieved personally, and later comes the role of public representatives to enhance more strict rules towards a great change. Okay, good. Let's keep going. All right. Asad Beck says, in order to establish these goals, we should work in unity, regardless of nation, color, and religion. Furthermore, scientific planning, procedures, and funding should be made ready for these changes. Yeah, okay. So what is needed to make these changes? One of two situations is required for such changes to occur. Either a public awakening to the fact that all people are equal and the same, and we need to be motivated to save ourselves and the world around us, or extreme challenges caused by nature, such as famine and drought, that eventually will force all of humanity to unite. I hope it will be the former rather than the latter. All right. Yeah, that's that's my opinion. I'm not doom and gloom. I'm just more of a realist. Here we go. So, what is needed to make these changes happen? In my mind, it's kind of simple. It's either humans realize that we need to all work together and wake up to the fact that our resources are running out, the world is getting warmer, or the world will do it for us. Okay, so one of two situations is required for such changes to occur. Either a public awakening to the fact that all people are equal and the same, and we need to be motivated to save ourselves and the world around us, or extreme challenges caused by nature, such as famine and drought, that eventually will force all of humanity to unite. I hope it will be the former rather than the latter. Notice the use of correlative conjunctions, so either or. I highly recommend doing that. Okay, so either or, whether or, not only, but also. So, notice the use of course, lexical resource as much as possible. So famine means that there's not enough food and we start starving, okay? Preeti, it's definitely not too long, okay? This is an absolutely acceptable length for an answer as long as you're fluent, all right? Drought means that there's not enough fresh water for farming or for drinking, okay? All right, and that eventually forces all of humanity to unite, okay? And then here, I hope it will be the former rather than the latter. So I'm an optimist. I hope that humans realize that we need to create change before it's too late, and nature forces us to change, as it does with all of the living world. Okay, and as long as you're doing a good job, the examiner will continue to keep pushing more questions. Arif is asking a good question. So Arif is asking, how many grammatical mistakes can I make to get a band 7? Okay, Arif, you can get a band 7 as long as your communication is clear. It's not just about how many grammatical mistakes you make, but it's also about what kinds of grammatical mistakes you make. If your grammar mistake does not create confusion, if your answer is still clear, then it's not as bad as when your grammatical mistake creates confusion. So it's not just about how many mistakes you make, but it's the kind of mistake that you make. Keep that in mind, okay? Your main goal is to be coherent. Yeah. Bushan says, Bushan Wei says, content. Yeah, content and coherence is more important. Okay. All right. Yeah, so let's do another question. So maybe the examiner will say, let's discuss important historical figures. All right. Why is it important to teach about important people in history? Give me a nice full sentence answer for this one. So why is it important to teach about important people in history? Why is it important to teach about important people in history? I have to repeat important here because the examiner wants to make sure that it's clear for the students. Okay. Kevin says, learning about key historical figures is imperative because it inspires descendants to follow their predecessors in their predecessors' footsteps, contributing further to social growth. Also, these lessons would teach people to never take their present for granted. For it equals dishonoring their grandparents' or great-grandparents' generations' legacies. Very nice, Kevin. Very nice response. Okay. Rashika says, it is imperative to learn about pioneers in history because people can learn their genuine behaviors such as honesty, hard work, resilience, which leads to building strong souls, not only for the individual, but also for the society. Rashika, I'm just finishing your concept there. Beautiful. And I really like your use of the word pioneers. Pioneers are people that are kind of the first to go and to do. Okay, so first to go to space, Neil Armstrong, the pioneers that discovered other places in the world, or that began social reforms or social movements, or pioneers of social change. Okay, so very, very good. Jainil says, in sociology, it is important to teach about or social science. Okay, sorry, Jainil. Yeah, you're right. One more time, Jainil. In social science, it is important to teach about historical figures because people can learn from their personalities and behaviors to make a happy world. When I was in my 10th grade, I was taught about, very good, Jainil, nice use of that smooth flowing example. Great job. All right. So it is vital to educate current and future generations. Let me borrow your word, Rashika. About pioneers of social and political change in the past. Let's make this a little bit more concise and clearer. So it is vital to educate current and future generations about past pioneers of social and political change, because this will shed light onto better solutions which serve the interests of the majority. As well, it helps to avoid mistakes of the past. Key figures may include people like Martin Luther King, Hitler, Pol Pot, I think that's how you spell his name, Abraham Lincoln, and Saint Teresa, to name a few. Okay. So here we go. Good and bad, right? Good and bad. We need to learn about both. Here we go. Repeat after me. Why is it important to teach about important people in history? It is vital to educate current and future generations about past pioneers of social and political change, because this will shed light onto better solutions which serve the interests of the majority, as well as it helps to avoid mistakes of the past. Key figures may include people like Martin Luther King, Hitler, Pol Pot, Abraham Lincoln, and Saint Teresa, to name a few. Okay. And at this point, the examiner will keep going if you're still under 12 minutes. They usually take about 12 minutes to complete the interview. We do have a few more questions here that you can practice on the website through the student partner speaking that I just showed you. So how can people be encouraged to learn about such people? In what ways are leaders today similar to leaders of the past? How are they different? Have views changed about certain historical figures over the decades and centuries, or have perspectives stayed the same? Can you explain further? All right, so practice those questions. Remember the tips that I gave you in the class. So speak in complete, full sentences using the question. Give answers, explanations, examples. Be original. Be fluent. Okay? All right, everyone. I will be back on Wednesday with speaking part 1, and I will post our next week's schedule from the 26th to the 29th on our YouTube community board. Make sure to check that out. Great work this week, students. Lots of exciting classes, lots of fun new topics. I try to be a little bit provocative with some of these topics as well to keep you interested. Great job, members in the members chat classes. Thank you, Carolina, for your moderation of the chat, keeping us productive. We really appreciate that. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone. If it's getting late in your country, sweet dreams. And remember, you're all smart, brilliant people. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Just believe in yourselves. Check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. Again, it's a one-time payment for lifetime access to our courses and our apps. You're in good hands with us. I'm Adrian, and I'm signing out from the beautiful Garden City of Victoria in West Coast Canada, British Columbia. See you all next week. Bye for now.